Okay, so you're a physical therapist, maybe an OT or an SLP,
Yeah.
and things are going well. So while you're opening a second clinic location, that's huge, right? It's more than just business growth. It feels like a real career win. You've built something successful. But that excitement, signing the new lease, it can fade pretty quickly when you hit the wall of, well, administration. We're talking about payer enrollment and credentialing. That whole process that decides if you actually get paid for your services. Get this wrong, and bam, revenue delayed, claims denied, patients frustrated because they can't use their insurance. It's a mess. So this deep dive, it's for you, the practice owner who's expanding. We want to cut through the noise and give you the stuff you actually need to know. Think of it as a map to avoid the administrative pitfalls that can really derail your expansion plans.
Exactly. And we're not focusing on the clinical side today. This is all about getting your practice through that, let's call it administrative verification stage. And it really is a beast because you're dealing with two different worlds, basically. You've got the government payers, Medicare, Medicaid, which are, structured but often slow. And then you have the commercial payers. And honestly, their requirements can be all over the place. It changes constantly depending on where you are, the specific plan. It really feels like managing 50 different projects at once, each with its own secret deadline.
Okay, let's jump right into that because one of the most surprising things we found is about when you need to start this.
Yeah.
You'd think, okay, sign the lease, maybe get the place set up a bit, then do the paperwork. Logical, right? But the research suggests if you wait until that lease is actually signed, you're already behind, weeks behind.
Yeah, that's the tough lesson. And we really can't emphasize this enough. You need to start the credentialing process the moment that lease agreement is signed. The reason is, well, it's structural. Payers, both government and commercial, they need paperwork that ties your tax ID and ownership details to that specific physical address. Things like your W-9, site-specific ownership documents. They need proof the place exists and belongs to your entity before they'll even look at your application.
Right, so you can't really verify a clinic location that doesn't officially exist on paper yet.
Precisely. And thinking about starting early, especially with government payers, Medicare is often key for revenue, right? There was a really strong specific recommendation we saw for handling the Medicare side of things.
That would be PICOs, the provider enrollment chain and ownership system.
Absolutely. Medicare heavily favors electronic enrollment via PICOs. So the key takeaway is get that PICOs application started for the new site immediately, like right now. Using the electronic system, just way faster. And it cuts down massively on errors and rework compared to fighting with paper forms later when you're stressed.
Okay, so this really comes back to how you structure the new clinic from day one. Is it a branch? A whole new LLC? That decision seems to ripple through all the paperwork.
It's a huge early decision point. How you set up that legal entity, DBA, LLC, separate billing entity, it directly impacts how payers process your claims later. You might find, for instance, that a big commercial payer won't let you bill for the new location under your existing group NPI if you structured it a certain way. It gets complicated.
Yeah.
So any new NPIs or EINs you need, get them the instant that site structure is decided. Don't wait. If you delay, you risk their online portals just rejecting your application flat out because the numbers don't match what they expect. It has to be exact. The advice we saw was actually to enroll both the new facility and the parent group early on. It gives you more flexibility down the road with those inconsistent payer rules.
Wow, okay. That structural bit alone sounds like a potential landmine if you don't nail it up front. So let's talk timelines then. If you're trying to plan your go-live date, what's a realistic time frame for getting those commercial payer approvals?
Right. For planning purposes,
Yeah.
you need to set a baseline expectation. And honestly, plan for 60 to 120 days per payout.
60 to 120 days.
Yes, that's the working minimum. Sure, you might get lucky. One might turn around in 30 days. But we've seen plenty of cases where it takes 4 months or even longer. It's not unheard of.
So you literally have to bake that potentially 4-month delay into your whole expansion budget and timeline.
You absolutely have to. Treat each payer like its own project. They all have their own stated turnaround times, their SLAs, right? Service level agreements. But if you don't factor that 120-day buffer into your financial projections, you could be facing a serious cash flow crunch right after opening.
Okay, given those huge differences in how long it takes, I imagine the reason for delays isn't always just the payer being slow, is it? If it takes that long anyway, you'd think the main issue is just waiting for them. But where does the research point as the real bottleneck?
Yeah, that's the interesting twist. It's easy to point fingers at the insurance company, But more often than not, the biggest bottleneck is actually internal. It's about consistency. The single biggest reason applications get stuck incomplete or inconsistent information being submitted. Think about simple, avoidable stuff. The NPI doesn't match the tax ID for that location, someone forgot to sign an attestation page, the malpractice insurance limits listed are wrong, or maybe a provider's license on file is expired. Payer delays are frustrating, definitely, but internal errors, they guarantee you're pushed to the back of the line.
It's maddening, right? You do all the hard work, secure the loan, build a great team, and then realize the biggest blocker is making sure a date format is the same on 6 forms. So the answer isn't just throwing more people at it, it's about quality control.
Totally. The research really hammers this point. Assign one person, a single responsible owner for the documents. Don't split it up. This person's main job, their KPI, should be document completeness and actively following up. They need to be checking things like CAQH, that's the Council for Affordable Quality Healthcare, the central database for provider info, making sure it's perfect, trying to track this with spreadsheets. It just falls apart when you add locations. You end up with that, oh, I thought you were handling that problem. You need that single point of accountability.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the digital side, the paperwork.
Yeah.
But that new clinic, it's a real place. Patients are coming in. What about compliance? Site visits, are they always scheduled? Or can someone just show up unannounced?
Oh, they are very real. And yes, sometimes they're completely unannounced. You have to operate assuming they could walk in any day. This isn't just theoretical. There are federal rules, especially for Medicaid, depending on risk level, that require site visits before and after enrollment. And CMS, they absolutely conduct unannounced Medicare site visits. They're checking physical things, accessibility, safety protocols, basic operations.
So, actionable tip time. What does the front desk need to have handy if an inspector walks in out of the blue?
You need what we'd call an inspection packet, ready to go at all times.
Yeah.
It needs to include documents showing ADA compliance, the facility's emergency action plan, sample credentialing files for your staff, proving their licenses are current. Having that packet ready means a surprise visit doesn't become a major disaster that halts your enrollment completely.
Let's switch gears a bit to the business strategy. One of the most disheartening things for a growing clinic is hearing from a commercial payer, "Sorry, our panel is full," or "closed." It feels so final. Is that rejection really the end of the road?
Well, what's interesting is that closed panel. It's definitely not always final, not set in stone. Payers are businesses too, right? They have needs. Sometimes they do reopen networks, or they might offer a temporary exception, a carve-out, but you usually have to push for it.
How do you push effectively? What does that look like?
You need a solid business case, backed by data. Show them the numbers. How many of their members live in that specific zip code and currently don't have easy access to a particular service you offer? Maybe it's specialized pediatric PT, for example. Then you have to relentlessly use their official channels, get names of specific reps, document every follow-up email, use their stated escalation pads. You have to turn that initial no into a conversation. Persistence combined with that data is key.
Okay, but that sounds like it could take time, potentially a lot of effort. While you're fighting that battle or just waiting out that 90 or 120 days, cash flow is still critical. How can a practice start seeing patients and generating some revenue lawfully without messing up their future in-network status?
Yeah, you absolutely can use some parallel strategies, and should, probably. The simplest, cleanest way is seeing cash pay or self-pay patients. That's always allowed. Another option, but this depends heavily on the specific payer contract, is sometimes you can add new providers under the parent practice's contract while their individual enrollment for the new site is still processing. But, and this is but the audit risk is significant here. If you're using these strategies, your documentation has to be flawless, especially around eligibility dates and trying to backdate claims. You can only backdate within the payer's specific allowed time frame. Get sloppy here, and you could face a massive audit headache later on. You must follow their rules to the letter.
What about clinicians who work at both the old site and the new one? Maybe floating between them? Do they need separate credentialing for each place?
Yes, that adds another layer of complexity, especially for billing. Those clinicians must notify the payers about working at multiple sites, and you need to confirm up front if they need a separate enrollment or maybe just an attestation for each physical location. Because even if they bill under the same group NPI, the claim itself has to accurately show where the service took place, the correct service location and taxonomy code. Auditors look at that closely. You have to log exactly which building the patient was seen in.
Okay, let's fast forward. Assume you've done everything right. You chase the payers, the paperwork is perfect, you got the approval letter. Are you finally done?
Yeah.
In the clear?
Sadly, not quite yet. Getting that payer approval letter doesn't automatically mean claims will process smoothly from day one. This is the last hurdle, and it's often missed. The data actually shows a lot of initial claim denials aren't because the credentialing was wrong in the back office. They happen because of errors at the front desk. Maybe eligibility checks weren't done correctly for the new site, or the wrong payer ID was entered for that location. The system is approved, but the data entry has issues.
Ah, so it's tactical at that point. What's the solution? What does that final quality check look like before you open the doors?
It looks like running test claims, stage test claims, maybe 2 to 4 weeks before you officially open. You have to simulate the real process. Train your front desk team specifically on the new payer IDs, the specific eligibility check steps for the new location, and have a denial playbook ready. Know how you'll handle those first few inevitable rejections quickly. Because fixing a systemic billing error when you're swamped with new patients in the first month, that's way more painful than spending time testing beforehand.
This whole process just screams that relying on manual tracking like spreadsheets just won't work as you scale up. So how do you make this whole administrative effort something you can actually measure? What's the real ROI here?
Right. If you're serious about growing, you need to measure the return on this administrative work. It's not just overhead, it's protecting revenue. The value of doing credentialing well, it's trackable. There are 3 key metrics you should be watching. First, days to first paid claim. And measure that from the day the lease was signed, not grand opening day. That's the true lead time. Second, your denial rate in the first 90 days after launch. How clean are those initial claims? And third, the percentage of claims that need rebilling because of enrollment corrections you had to make after the fact. Those numbers tell you if your process is actually working efficiently and protecting your bottom line.
That's really clear, actionable stuff. Okay, to wrap up this deep dive, let's just quickly hit the 3 most critical actions for anyone listening who's planning this. 1, start that credentialing process the second the lease is signed. Don't wait. 2, assign one person, a single owner, who is accountable for document quality and follow-up. And 3, run those test claims. Simulate your billing 2 to 4 weeks before you open.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we pull back for a second, think about the bigger picture. We focused heavily on the verification and enrollment part. That's step one, the administrative piece. But there's another really important administrative and, frankly, legal layer here.
Right. Which brings us to a really key distinction that often gets blurred, especially when people are just excited about opening. What is the fundamental difference between credentialing the verification we've been talking about and contracting the financial side?
It's crucial to keep them separate in your mind. Credentialing is purely administrative. It's verifying your providers, verifying your physical site, so you are allowed to submit bills to that insurance company under their rules. It gets you in the door. Contracting, that's different. That's the actual negotiation. That's where you agree on the payment rates, the specific terms of service, your network status. Are you preferred? Are you tiered? It's the financial agreement itself. You absolutely need both to be successful. You could be perfectly credentialed, all boxes checked, ready to go. But if you haven't negotiated a good contract with reasonable rates, well, administrative success doesn't guarantee financial viability.
Which leads us to our final thought for you, the listener, as you navigate your expansion plans. We just spent a lot of time on the complexity, the potential 120-day timeline, just for the administrative step of credentialing. So thinking strategically, which stage, the credentialing verification or the financial negotiation of contracting, demands more of your upfront legal and strategic focus during this critical expansion phase? Something to really consider. Thanks for diving deep with us today.